Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Hello, everybody. This is Guineith Isaacs speaking here. Vincent will be connecting in a moment, but until then, I'm keeping the chair warm for him. I'd like to thank Jason today in Minnesota for engineering the broadcast. I don't think I don't know if we can take calls or not today. You can probably try. The phone number is 866-582-9933. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. I would like to start today by just highlighting something that happened in Texas over the last week. And actually, it's just been over the earlier part of this week that it happened. And Greg Abbott, who is the governor of Texas, came on to the television and he announced, just in the course of another speech that he was making, just a little 30-second clip. And he said that he would be sending the National Guard door to door to old people's houses just to make sure that they had their coronavirus vaccine. Really? So you're going to send the National Guard door to door to old people's houses. You're going to line up National Guard regiments at old people's houses, Mr. Greg Abbott, and scare the living daylights out of them and intimidate them with thuggery into getting their coronavirus vaccines? When these vaccines have been, it states on the, on the warning label, on the material safety data sheet that is included with every vaccine, that you should not give it to people over the age of 65. Now, I would say that is completely unconscionable, Mr. Greg Abbott. That is attempted murder. That is, the worst kind of thuggery that you could possibly imagine. I can tell you, if an army regiment showed up at my gate and said, oh, you better get a vaccine or we've got an army regiment out here, then I would regard that as being an act of war, personally. And I would regard it as being attempted murder, personally. Because these vaccines are killing people. Nobody should get these vaccines. They are the mark of the beast. They have a microchip with them, which is a tracking chip. They are nothing but bad news. Nobody should get them. But especially, there have been old people, something like between 20 and 40% of old people who get these vaccines die on the spot pretty well, within a day. Some of them within 15 minutes. And we've got a type of snake around here, I think I mentioned it the other week, called the eastern brown snake. It's one of the most dangerous snakes in the world. It's the second most dangerous snake in Australia. and it'll kill you. If you're bitten by it, it'll kill you within 45 minutes. And these coronavirus so-called vaccines, which are not vaccines, which are gene editing Trojan horses, is the only thing I can think of to call them, killing people within 15 minutes, which means that they're 3 times deadlier. Some people, not everybody,
Guineith.
some people, some people hang on for a week. But it is deadly. These coronavirus vaccines are what I've been talking about, Vincent. Did you know that the National Guard in Texas, that Greg Abbott came on in a press conference on the public press, and he said in this press conference, and just a little 30-second clip, you'd have to be listening pretty carefully to hear it, but he said in this little 30-second clip that he was going to be sending the National Guard to old people's doors to make sure that they had their coronavirus vaccines.
Yeah, we mentioned that. We mentioned that yesterday. That we expected that to happen. Yeah, absolutely. And since when does the government do things like that? It's totally unacceptable. Yeah, I have to apologize to our class. I fully expected the shooting to have started already. And I guess it's because Americans are fatter, lazier, and dumber than even I thought. So, I was not advocating a shooting, a revolution / civil war, but I really thought that people have had it. And, with the Ted Cruzes and the, people of that persuasion who would duck their responsibilities and go on vacation while the going gets tough. I guess the old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough go on vacation. Well, I apologize for saying that I believe that it would have gotten more violent by now, and it hasn't. Now, I'm not saying that I wanted that to happen. I certainly did not. But I expected Americans to be a little tougher. And based on what I've seen, our enemies worldwide can just walk right all over us because we are that weak. Guineith, so when the governor says we're going to come visit you, that's out of control. Absolutely out of control. Yeah. Because let's turn that around. Let's turn it around. Let's say we say to the governor, hey, governor, I'll tell you what. We don't think you're doing the right thing. And for your own safety, we're going to come to your house. And we're going to have a chat with you. We'll sit in the living room. It'll be just, I don't know, maybe 10,000 of us. And we'll try to cram in there and tell you what our position is. How about that? What do you think the governor would do in that case? Okay. So what they do is they gang up on us. Absolutely.
And
that's what they've done.
And then he'd gang up on us.
Right. And that's what they're doing in Washington, D.C. These, let's talk about lazy Americans on the dole. People who claim to be Americans who are at the laziest level a person can be. Well, who are they? Well, they would be called representatives. People like senators and congresspeople. They're lazy. And they figured out that the villagers are furious with them. So now they have, on standby and have had 5,000 National Guard troops to protect these lazy people from the people that they allegedly represent. How about that? If you think about it, the governor's mansions, the governor's houses, the ex-president's houses, they have military and Secret Service guards. There's snipers on the rooftops of buildings, around the, in the swamp. I'm talking about Washington, in the swamp. They've got drones. They've got cameras everywhere because these people are terrified. They figured it out. They figured out that the villagers don't like being told what to do, especially by a bunch of parasites who go on vacation when the going gets tough. And then you've got guys like Andrew Cuomo, who is a predator, allegedly, reportedly a predator. And then you look at these other people, the Epstein clan, and his associates, preying on young women. And I was thinking about this last night. I'm sorry for being on a roll, but I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed that this has been allowed to happen. And so you've got, let's talk about, and this is a hypothetical case about Andrew Cuomo's aides and aides equaling assistants, young female pretty girls. So a girl comes in and gets hired and the administration takes her to lunch. Let's go to lunch. And then, hey, listen, maybe you can come back and I got some memos I want to dictate. Maybe you can come back to my apartment or my house. And the girl says, wow, governor's house. Geez, I must be something special. He must really like my work. And then she finds out that he wants extracurricular activities. And then, so she's at that point, she is in a jam. Now, let's say she hasn't succumbed to his will. She's in a jam that she cannot get out of. There's no extricating herself from this, because if she says no, she loses her job, her prestige, her apartment, her car, and everything else that comes, all the trappings that come with these highly overpaid positions. The entree into all kinds of settings by being the governor's assistant, or the mayor's assistant, or the president's assistant, whatever it may be. So if she says, no, you can't put your hand up my skirt, she's doomed. If she says yes, she's doomed, because now she is entrapped, and if she ever says no again, she will be politically destroyed, maybe even terminated. And you can say terminated meaning a couple different things, like cessation of respiration, or you could say terminated by getting fired, or you can have your life's work destroyed through the media, through planted stories that aren't true. Guineith, am I making this stuff up?
No. Hang on. Isn't this guy Cuomo, isn't he the son of a New York gangster?
Well, if you say a former governor, yes, he's the son of Mario. About saying having your respiration terminated. Because isn't he Mario Cuomo's son? Yeah. And, I used to listen to a guy on the radio, probably one of the best broadcasters ever. His name was Bob Gigante. That was his real name. He traded by the name Bob Grant. And he hated Governor Mario Cuomo. Hated him. And he used to end his broadcast with a jab at Mario every day. And Bob Grant was great. And so was Art Bell. Art Bell was probably one of the other finest broadcasters ever in my book. And by the way, if you find some similarities between USA Prepares and Art Bell, it's intentional. Art Bell started it, and we're just following his lead in terms of long questions, long interviews, complete answers, complete discussion. And he had his group of regulars, and they were called guests, and we have ours, and we call them faculty. So, Guineith, I had a comment that I wanted to make. So I walked into the kitchen this morning, and I said to Mrs. Finelli, I said, Mrs. Finelli, where did you learn how to cook? And this ties to an email that you sent me. And what I'm trying to say is, we're on the same page. Separately, but together. Meaning, you figured it out, we figured it out separately, but we're on the same page. So I said, where did you learn how to cook? And she said, from my mom. And I said, where did she learn how to cook? From her mom. Where did she learn how to cook? From her mom. Where did she learn how to cook? From her mom. And what I'm talking about is handed down knowledge, handed down skills, handed down training from mother to daughter, to daughter, to daughter, to daughter, from father to son, to son, to son, to son. And where did it go? Well, it's been displaced and replaced with the government training camp, which dropped it, which we used to be called home economics. I just want to bring that up when we come back, and then please add on to what I'm about to say. Guineith Isaacs with us live in Australia. Okay, so sorry I went off on a rant here, but just to continue a little bit more. So my wife, Mrs. Finelli, learned from her mother, and her mother learned from her mother, and it went right up the line. And, how to take care of the family. And we're talking about domestic engineering. That would be our term. Home economics is what it used to be called in the public training camp. Well, I used to be a consultant for many school districts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the one where I started had, on the campus of the high school, a house, a brick house. And in that brick house was a washing machine, a dryer, a kitchen. It had a living room. It was a house. And it was mostly girls that attended this home economics series of classes. They would go into this house and they would learn how to how to do domestic engineering. They would learn baking and sewing and washing clothes and, housekeeping and household finances and paying bills and how interest works, cooking with nutrition. Okay. They learned how to run that household, run it almost like a business, not to drown in debt, all those kinds of things. That's what they learned. And that's been replaced with what? What? Volleyball? How about, the joys of being a homo? I mean, what has it been replaced with? That's what I want to know. Where is it? And superintendents, what's wrong with you? Why are you not teaching our young people how to run the household? The biggest thing in someone's life is running a household. It's the biggest thing. Well, our children, of course, and Mrs. Finelli, of course. But in Guineith's situation, she is the domestic engineer. She's running the farm. She's paying the bills. She's figuring out finances, economics, sanitation, repairs, maintenance, prevention. That's what she's doing. And how come we don't teach that anymore? So we teach instead, let's make sure that everybody gets a trophy. Everybody practices in the sports and everybody is a hero. It's nonsense. So if you have a child in the public training camp, if they ever open up, I suggest you talk to your superintendents en masse. Get all your friends and family and neighbors together and you go visit him at his house or her house. Say, hey, we're here and here's what we want. Or you're out. Guineith?
Well, something that is the truth. And my son, against my will, but there's not really anything I could do to stop him, recently re-enrolled in the public training camp. And I said, it's a waste of time. That system's going down the tubes. You're better off getting a job. But apparently his mind was fixed, and so that's what he's decided to do with himself for about the next year. But, it is absolutely true. And I learnt from my mum how to make a really fine chutney, for example. I don't know, do they have chutney in America?
Why don't you describe what it is, and we probably call it something else. Are you talking about like a pickle relish kind of a thing?
It's a pickle relish kind of thing, yeah.
Yes.
So generally you have some kind of fruit, and then you have onions, and then you have dill, and then you might have some gherkins sliced up, and then you might have, or the key ingredient is the vinegar. So you get the fruit, such as you can use tomatoes, but actually tomatoes is most common, but you can use just about any fruit. You can have apple chutney, kiwi fruit chutney. Around here it's prickly pear chutney because that's what's available. That's the fruit component. And then you've got onions, and then you've got dill or fennel, foliage or seeds, and then you have vinegar, and you put them, you put all the fruit and herb ingredients and the onion and all that in a pot. You cover it with the vinegar, and you boil it until it's cooked. And then you have some jars that you've sterilized while you've been waiting for the fruit to cook. And then when the jars have been sterilized and when the chutney is cooked, then you get the jars and they'll be hot. You ladle the chutney into the jars and you've sterilized the lids at the same time. You screw the lids on, you put them upside down on a tea towel, and you put them on the bench until they're cool. Then you put them in the cupboard the right way out. So it's very important to put them upside down because that's what fills the jars. And my mum taught me how to do this when I was little.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, so I guess the thrust of what we're saying is that the public training camp has been destroyed to the point where no child has a chance. Absolutely no child has a chance. And I got an email from Guineith, and let me just read one line. Oh, shoot. Okay. It says, our Our ancestors could do so much with so little. And every one of them survived and lived quite good lives in circumstances that would kill your average Joe today. Gwyneth, that is a quote from you, starting with, quote, our ancestors could do so much with so little, and every one of them survived and lived quite good lives in circumstances that would kill your average Joe today, end quote. That is from Guineith Isaacs.
Yeah.
That is the whole point. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that she and I came up with the same thing independently on two separate continents, separated by thousands and thousands of miles of oceans at the same time. Yes?
Wow. That's amazing. Was that exactly what you were thinking?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Because when I asked Mrs. Finelli, who taught your mother how to cook? Who taught you how to cook? What I was saying is, you guys, you had it, meaning Mrs. Finelli had it easier than her mom. Her mom had it easier than her mom, and so forth. And, going back up the line, it was really, really tough. But they survived. Every single one of them survived, or she wouldn't be here. Meaning Mrs. Finelli. So we have lost that. And I'm wondering right now, if we were teaching home economics in school, if we're not, but if we were, and they say the reason is there's a shortage of teachers and budget. Absolutely nonsense. Because it used to be you could educate a child for less than $1,000 a year in the public training camp. Now you can't do it for $10,000 a year. You can't educate the average kindergartner for $10,000 a year in Missouri. Takes more. And every year the school system says, yeah, but it's so hard because we don't have enough money, which is nonsense. What I'm saying is we've lost our way, and we need to go visit these superintendents of schools and the school boards, and we need to go visit them at their houses and say, we're here. Now here's what we'd like you to do. And we want to give you all the opportunity to do it, because if you don't, we're going to throw you out and humiliate you, because that's what the internet's for. And by the way, you see the average Joe over there in the back of the room, he just took your picture and he videoed the whole thing, and it's going to go on YouTube and BitChute. I'm disgusted with what has happened to the educational system. And so what would be home economics today? Well, class, look at this. This is the keyboard of your microwave oven. You see where it says 3, the number 3? You all recognize number 3, right? That's 3. This is 0, and that's the start button. Now, you put your hot dog in there, your extruded food, and you should probably cover it with something, so it won't spatter. That would be like a best practice. And then you push the 3 and the 0, and then you hit start. Now, you stand back. Well, only because those people at USA Prepares say that microwave ovens are dangerous. But we don't think that's true. But you might want to stand back anyway. And then when it goes ding, 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 that means it's done. That concludes your class in home economics for the month.
Oh, dear.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm out of control angry, but it is commensurate with the scope and the scale and the size and the breadth and the depth and the thickness and the viscosity of our problems.
Yep. Shall I describe where my grandparents came from on my mother's side?
I am anxiously awaiting to hear this. Thank you.
Okay. My grandparents on my mother's side were both born into the lap of luxury, actually. They were both from British blue blood families. My grandmother was the granddaughter of an earl, and my grandfather, whose name was called Pop, he had a job. And his job was that he worked at Buckingham Palace, guarding the Queen, riding a big black horse. So he had grown up with his mother being the nanny and nurse and governess in what they called the big house. And she was a senior servant in the big house, and because of that, my grandfather got to grow up with his lordship's children and received all the same lessons that his lordship received that His Lordship's children received, because their school teacher was my pop's mother. So she was the teacher, she was the nanny, and she was also the medical nurse in this household. And she was a widow, but her husband's brother was quite well connected in social circles in London, and he was a blue blood. And so she grew up in wealthy circumstances, and my pop grew up in wealthy circumstances. And anyway, they met and they got married, and they came out to Australia when Pop was around about 26 years old, and they were told that they were going to be given a 200-acre fully set-up dairy farm. And when they got out here to Australia, they had a tin shack in the middle of the bush, a water tank with no water in it. And, by the way, bush in Australia means approximately the same as redwood forest in the United States. Okay? That was the magnitude of the trees that was in the bush. And they weren't redwoods, they were a tree called jarrah. And jarrah trees have a harder wood than redwoods, but they are around about the same size. And he was given a crosscut saw, an axe, a pick and a shovel. He was shown this 200 acres of jarrah trees, and he was told to clear the land. And he spent 14 years trying to clear that land before he finally gave up, moved into town, and took a job as a railway engineer. And he almost destroyed himself with drink. But actually, he did destroy himself with drink. He ended up getting cirrhosis of the liver and dying, probably younger than he should have. But Grandma, she was an absolute darling. She maintained her composure throughout the whole thing. When she was a child, when she was unmarried, growing up, she used to have frequent holidays at her grandfather's estate, and he lived next to the Bose lion family, which meant that my grandmother, as a young woman, got to have frequent afternoons with the woman who would become the Queen Mother, Elizabeth Bose Lyon, and they became quite good friends. So that was so my grandmother had a nickname, and that was called Queenie. That was her nickname because she had such a regal composure. She never let the years of poverty destroy how she had been raised. But she became a supreme domestic engineer who could literally do almost anything with almost nothing. And she was good at pickling. She was good at, which is what in America you would call canning. Here in Australia we call it pickling, or jam making. And she could make jams, and she could make chutneys, and she could make, just about sauces or just about anything that you could imagine in the area of canning and pickling. And she was the one who taught my mother how to pickle, and my mother was the one who taught me how to pickle. So today I don't have 200 acres of scrub, I have 20 acres of scrub. And it's not quite the scrub is not quite of the magnitude as my grandfather's farm, and I have no intention of clearing it. And instead I'm planting the understory with everything that I need to plant. But, the lessons that were learned back in the day are being drawn on by me in this day, because I just epigenetically knew the importance of water. Nobody had to teach me the importance of water, although Mum actually did teach me the importance of water, because I didn't grow up in such an arid area. I grew up in Rotorua in New Zealand, and the people of Rotorua in New Zealand have made the bathhouse into an international phenomenon. And meanwhile, while everybody in town was having 12-inch deep baths in their own town because of the volume of rain that falls on that place and because of the marvelous, marvelous water that just bubbles up as clear as crystal from the ground and is the town drinking water. But these days they probably ruin with fluoridation, chlorination. But back in the day, none of that was even considered necessary. You know, we just drank what bubbled out of the ground, and it was put into a tank which was up on the hill, which flowed down, and that was our town water supply. But my mum would give me 3 or 4 inch deep baths. And that's all that I ever knew, and that's all that I ever remembered as a child. And I remember going to my friends' places and having baths and them being astounded with the tiny amount of bath water that I put in the bottom of the bath, 3 or 4 inches deep. Actually 3 was probably pretty generous. And the reason why they did that was because Mum grew up in Geraldton and she was bathed by her mother, and water was absolutely, absolutely, absolutely precious. Yeah, and unless you've lived in a desert climate, you have no comprehension of how precious water really is, you know. But this is the sort of thing. During the bottom of the hour news, I got my lounge room stove lit, and I just did it as a matter of course, just in a few minutes. And there's now a kettle boiling, or it will soon be boiled anyway, on the stove. And I don't remember who taught me how to light a stove. I don't remember who taught me that, you know. But a lot of people, I've seen people who don't know about stoves try to light a stove. And it's painful to watch. It's a skill that has been lost. How to light a fire. How to light a fire. Everybody in the whole history of humanity, there's been just about nobody, man or woman, has ever grown up being ignorant of how to get a fire going. And you give a lighter and some tinder, some paper and some small sticks or whatever, you know, to the average Joe down the road, and he will not know how to light a fire in a stove. And
when we come back,
I've got how to do it safely.
When we come back, I've got a comment about that. Kyle will be joining us for the next hour. Gwyneth, you mentioned starting a fire and not knowing exactly where you learned that. Well, not everybody knows how to start a fire, and I'm going to tell you a very short story. So back around 1980, I got a call from Bert in California. I was on the East Coast, and Mrs. Finelli and I just bought we lived in it for about a year or so, a brick house, and it needed a lot of work. It was a large brick house, had 2 fireplaces in the house, one in the basement, one in the living room. And so we painted all the walls nice white. It came with wool, wall-to-wall carpeting in a lot of the rooms, and we had white linen curtains in it. And we decided that when Bert called me, he said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, I don't know. What are you doing? He said, "You want to start a company?" I said, "Sure." So we moved to California and started this company, and we manufactured satellite receivers. And so we decided that we didn't know if we were going to like California, so we rented our house on the East Coast. And we rented it to a family where the husband, was a school principal. She was a teacher, and you'd think, boy, they've got to be nice tenants, right? So we rented this house, and the neighbor started calling and saying, these guys, did you ever meet these people? And I said, no. The realtor handled all that. So I never met the tenants. Well, what happened was we came back to visit, and they destroyed our house. They decided to have a fire in the fireplace, and they didn't know that there's a damper, and that you open the damper, to open up the chimney flue before, soot all over the linen curtains, the walls, the rugs, and then the electric operated clothes dryer in the basement. They didn't know that you cleaned the filter. So there was dust all over. I mean, balls of dust, so much dust and lint from the dryer that it choked the air intake for the oil burner. The oil burner backfired, blew black soot all throughout the house. So these guys didn't know anything about anything. And I had to sue them to get these termites out of the house. Literally. That's how I got him out. And he was a principal. So you can be highly educated and ignorant at the same time. And just thinking about that over 40 years ago just makes my blood boil. And the attorney representing these parasites, these termites, said that I would have to pay them to get these termites out of the house. I said, oh no, you don't know. I am delighted to be going into the courtroom in just a couple minutes and getting you guys out, because I don't know how you could have this much fun for $40 to sue these guys and get them out of the house and get damage compensation from them. And that's what I did. So what I'm saying is, don't take it. Don't take it. And if you're right, go after it. Make it happen. Don't back down. And that's why I'm very surprised at America, how we have backed down. We're a bunch of pansies. Pansies. We're letting people run all over us.
That's
corporations taking advantage of us, stealing from us. Which part is amazing? Which part?
The bit where they just destroyed your house. I'm not saying it's amazing in a good way. I'm saying it's absolutely amazing in an absolutely awful way. And, by comparison, my pop, my grandfather, my mum's dad, he was known as the town drunk, and yet he was the local rail engineer. It was his job to change the signal as the locomotives came into town to send them to the right place. And you would think that those two jobs would be highly incompatible, but actually he was the best line engineer, probably that, had been around in a while. And you know why, Vincent? Because he had been raised in the military. He went to Sandhurst Military College at the age of 14. He had his job when he was in London of guarding Buckingham Palace, which was apparently an extremely important job. Guarding the king. And, something, he had a philosophy in life. He said, you can get drunk in your spare time, but make sure you turn up to the base sober. And apparently that's a military saying. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but, he regarded his job, even though he was known for his liking of alcohol, he believed that when you showed up for your work, you had better show up on time and sober, clean cut, and smelling good. Does that make sense, Vincent? And yet this was not a reputable man. This was the disreputable man of the whole town. The one who was considered
you can be
there were actually people who were more disreputable than him.
Can be a fully functioning alcoholic and do your job. Maybe someday I'll tell a story about how the administrator of an agency, a government agency that employed me, had an alcoholic as the head of the agency, and he went to the Secretary of Labor for the state and said, look, we need this guy. You got to pay him enough money so we can keep him. And that's what they did. They overrid all the guidelines to pay me enough to get my attention, to keep me working for the government. No kidding. Back in the 70s. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class for hour number 2. Kyle's with us. And this hour, we're going to be talking about tools and the tips from the book and tools most likely wanted and or needed for your homestead. Our favorite tools for plumbing, wiring, and carpentry. Kyle has developed some items for this class that he'll be teaching from the front of the classroom. And I wanted to say that Gene will be with you in just a minute. I see you on the call screen. We'll be right with you. I just would like to welcome Kyle to the broadcast classroom first. Welcome, Kyle.
Good morning, Vincenzo. How are you?
Yeah, Vincenzo. Do you know that that's what that's what my mother used to call me sometimes, Vincenzo. And my grandmother sometimes would call me Brute, and I think that means the funny-looking, ugly one.
Oh, my goodness.
She would say in Italian, she mostly spoke English, but every once in a while when she didn't want me to know, I think she would say something like, that face, that one right there, that's Brute, meaning funny looking. And that maybe my mom shouldn't have dropped me on my face.
At least not so many times, huh?
Right. Let's, Kyle, we're going to be talking about tools. Gene in Kentucky, welcome. I see that you want to talk about batteries or a battery. Gene, you there? Hey, Gene.
I'm talking.
Oh, great. All right.
I'm on a corded phone. That's the only thing I use, corded phone.
Okay.
Well,
so
anyway,
I got I read the paper and I see that, you made the second page of the Louisville Press. You have given up sugar. Very good. Congratulations. You want to talk about batteries?
No, but I've cut back. Okay.
Very good.
So sorry. Well, anyway, okay, went out to start my little truck, to go get something, and nothing at all. Previously, because I don't drive it that often, I was like, I do the little other junky car. But anyway, we got old cars, that's the only thing I ever want. But anyway, nothing. Even a little thief light that's usually flashing because it's not what it uses.
So do you want to know what to do, or what is your question?
Well, okay, my question is, did we destroy the battery by jumping it a couple times? And the cold weather probably affected it. And should he have checked the electrolytes in it? Because I did order another one, and I got it in my possession. And because thanks to you, because I'm like a prepper in a way. But anyway, did we make a mistake by jumping it? And was it the cold weather, the real cold weather? Because we don't have a heated garage. Thanks to not having.
I have an answer for all of your questions.
Yeah.
But Kyle, would you like to answer this?
Sure. You know, if I was in your position, what I would do is do you have a battery charger?
Yes, that's what I did. I charged the battery immediately. I plugged it in myself. The old Sears, since we've been married a long time, we've got a lot of Sears stuff. And I plugged it in, and I wasn't going to do the start thing like I did maybe once or twice over the years. And the battery, I think, is from 2017. And I plugged it in, and I just went out here in my little vehicle and let it go for several hours. And I finally checked on it last night. And then I saw moisture on top of it. And that was scary because I figured it's probably boiled over or something. I'm not sure, I'm scared. He said, go ahead and start. I said, no way. No way am I going to touch that thing. I don't know if it's battery acid or if it's water. Because I don't know if he took a hygrometer to it or not lately to check the,
You did. When you put the battery charger on your battery, did you put it on start for all night long?
No, I did the regular charge thing. It wasn't all night. It was like from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to about 7 or 6:30 when I finally decided to check on it again. I did check on it previously before I left out of here again, and it had moved some. Okay. But I don't know where the moisture came. It must have came out of the battery.
Yeah, it definitely came out of the battery, more than likely. Have you checked your battery cables to see if they're corroded?
They're beautiful. No, we've got those little red and green felt things on them. And everything's beautiful looking. They got new plug, I'm talking about the cables on it we had put on a long time ago. And everything's beautiful looking. The batteries was the best, supposedly the AZ sold, the Duralast, Gold, or whatever. I always buy the best, even though I've got old vehicles. And I have a feeling because it got so cold, those few nights.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know how cold it got there, but if you have a completely discharged battery and it freezes, my experience is that probably 93 times out of 100 or 95 times out of 100, the battery is dead. I mean, it's gone. Completely, unusable. The way you can tell most of the time is if the battery freezes, if you look right down along the side, the Usually it's on the small side. If you look down there, you'll see a bulge. Just a really super slight bulge on either end. And if you see that bulge, then it froze, and chances are your battery is shot. But again, the key to it, do you have a multimeter at all?
Yes, he's going to come over and change it to the new one, but I'm still upset because it should have held up longer than that, you know. And plus, like I said, he did push take it out just to show me that it was going to work before he went back to the other house that day. And of course, we were kind of stuck here for a while because the ice on the roads and that, at least in our driveway for a while, And I we didn't go anywhere for like 2 weeks, most whatever. And but I think too that I don't know if the hydro cells were low or not. He said he don't remember if he checked that part or not. And I don't think it's got a bulge, but I'll check. Could it be just condensation because it was so warm yesterday? It was almost 60 something.
No. Kyle's absolutely right.
Because I got a great big garage, bigger than the house.
Gene, here's what probably happened. Mm-hmm. Kyle is absolutely right. What you can do is, I would, if you can get a bucket of water or some kind of a pitcher of water or garden hose and gently wash off the top of the battery, rinse off all the area where acid would have boiled off and drip down the side of the battery. Before you test it for the bulge, rinse it off, okay? Make sure you get that acid off and make sure. Just hear me out, please.
Okay.
You want the acid to be off because it is dangerous and it can burn your skin.
I understand.
And then what you can do is you can put on some rubber gloves like those latex gloves or the blue ones, okay? And then what you do is you take your hand, and if you're right-handed, use your right hand, and you feel down the short side of the battery. There's the long side, which would be front and back, and then the sides would be the short side, and you feel from top to bottom. And if it's bulged like a quarter of an inch on that side, outward in the middle of the height from the bottom of the battery to the top, if it's bulged out a quarter of an inch, the plates have buckled. That means they have physically, the acid has frozen, it has expanded and broken the lead plates in the battery, and it is not fixable no matter what. Okay? It's only good for a core, meaning when you buy a new battery, they want the old one back.
Yeah, I know, because I kept the core this time.
Right. So here's the whole answer. If you bought a Duralast Gold, that's their best. It's typically got a 3-year free replacement warranty with maybe 5 or 7 years prorated. So you should get, if you have a 2017 battery, which I believe you said, it's about 4 years old. Bottom line is, I don't care how long the battery is guaranteed for, they last about 3 or 4 years. So you're really at pretty much the end of its useful life expectancy. Okay? You're not going to get 100% charge out of an old battery like that. And they could last longer, but they don't make them to last longer. They want you to keep buying new batteries.
Well,
bottom line is this. Rinse it off, feel if you have the bulge. If you have a bulge, it's on the sides, it's no good. But it is good for the replacement credit. So you might get half of your money back for the original warranty period of 5 or 7 years. Next thing, what Kyle said, make sure your battery terminals. Now you can't see under those NOCO, N-O-C-O, as in no corrosion, red and blue felt impregnated anti-corrosion discs that are under the battery terminals. You really can't see whether there's corrosion between your terminal and the battery post. Okay, and I assume you have a top post battery.
Yes.
So bottom line is you probably did boil it over, and you probably boiled it over because the plates buckled, because it froze, and it froze because the battery charge was insufficient. Now, a lead acid battery with electrolyte will not freeze under normal circumstances, but if the battery is discharged, it will freeze at 32 degrees or lower and buckle the plates and ruin the battery, which is why I've been harping on this for months, saying get a battery charger and you will experience this problem if you do not have a fully charged battery when the weather goes below 32 degrees. Kyle, have you ever heard me say that?
Yeah, maybe a couple dozen times.
Yeah. But I'd have to have a lot of chargers. I have a few trickle chargers, but they're used for marine type use, and
Well, no, you can use them for all your batteries. As a matter of fact, I believe Gene, I believe we have at least 8 or more, well, more than 8, probably have more than 10 battery chargers here at the farm. And a lot of them are trickle chargers. And we move them on from battery to battery to battery because you let one of these lead acid batteries stay unattached to anything. Okay, just sitting, battery not connected. It will go dead in 30 days.
Yeah.
All by itself.
Yeah,
so if you've got it connected to a car that has a computer and a security system, like, one that will sense whether you have the right key in the ignition, that computer's running all the time, draining your battery. So 3 weeks maybe at the most before you see signs of a dead battery.
So
Okay?
with that little thing,
Go ahead.
with that little light's been flashing thief all the time, so that's been draining my battery too?
Absolutely. That's what I'm talking about.
He figured something was wrong, because I guess when people had it before us, I guess either they got drunk and lost their keys or they stole it or something. I have no idea, but, I always buy everything used.
Sounds like a Ford. Is that a Ford?
Yeah, unfortunately, fix or repair daily.
Yeah.
But I think, too, that I think the electrolytes could have got low, too. Because he did add water a while back, he thinks, he takes the caps off.
It has to be, it sounds like I'm stuttering, distilled water only.
Oh, that's what we do. I have my own distiller, too. But
Very
anyway, if it doesn't have a bulge in it, that meant it didn't freeze, right?
Probably did not. Probably did not. Now, you never add acid. Okay, I mean, you can buy a quart or a half gallon of acid, battery acid, but never add acid. The only thing that you add to a battery that is low on electrolyte is distilled water. That's it, period. Nothing else. Kyle, any comments?
That's exactly correct. That's about all you can say. What I do is, if you've got a meter and you've had your battery charger on it for 4 or 5 hours, first thing you would do with the meter is check your voltage across the positive and negative with your meter and see where it's at. I've seen them 8, 9, 10, 11. If it's anything below 12.6, I think, you've got a problem. But
that's a good number.
Go ahead. Okay.
That's a good number. 12.6, 12.4. That's a good number. You don't want to be below that. And you can charge it and see if you can bring it up. If you can't, bring it back. You can actually bring that battery to AutoZone. So, Gene, that's about all we can give you. What I would do is I bring the battery back, rinse it off, make sure that the acid's off it, and leave it where it can drip outside, and put it on a piece of cardboard and put it in, in a place where it's not going to roll around if you take it to AutoZone.
No, I'm not going to take it. I'm keeping the core. I've already taken the core. Because we use it for other applications.
Well, not this one you're not.
I don't know.
Not this one you're not. This one's a boat anchor.
Stick with the hygrometer. I'm probably from Missouri originally. Didn't know it.
Right.
Whatever.
Okay.
But anyway,
unless you're going to make bullets out of it or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, Gene, I've got to run. Did we give you enough information?
Yeah. Can you talk to him about backing up your systems with running off a battery when the electric's out?
Okay. You want me to talk about uninterruptible power systems? I can do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about just.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I'll do it next week. All right.
Okay. And then.
And I'll tell you exactly how to do it.
Okay, with my 6 voters. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks. Bye-bye. That was Jean in Kentucky. And she's the gal who just is drawn to sugar. And she says she's reduced her consumption, which is wonderful news. And I beat her up every time she comes on, and I tease her about that. So Kyle, we want to talk about tools. But may I mention something first? I've decided that I only care about what a few people think, of things I do, my actions and so forth. So most people, I have no concern what they think of me, how I behave. Of course, I care about Kyle and Sharon and Kathy and, John Reagan and Rich Sheben and Norman, our instructors. I certainly care about our instructors in our class, but most people I don't care about. So what I've decided to do lately is when people call up and they go, I answer the phone, and if I'm walking by the phone, I'll answer it. Otherwise, the answering machine will take it. And so it was dark in the kitchen. I was walking by the kitchen. It rang 3 times. I knew right after the 3rd ring, it was going to answer with the answering machine. I thought, let me just grab the phone. So here's what I said. Now, I had no idea who was calling. No idea. Normally, I say Pizza Hut, or something like that. That way, they don't go, where are you? Or what are you doing? When I say Pizza Hut, I decide that's not the right answer. So here's what I have decided to say most of the time. So yesterday, I walked past the phone. I had no idea who was calling. It was dark in the kitchen, the lights were off, and the display is like a, black LCD display on the phone, and it's an antique phone. It's got to be 30 years old. So anyway, so I said, quote, "Yeah, hey, thanks for calling me back. I deposited the check for the second time. It bounced. Now, do you want me to tear it up, send it back, or put it with the others?" End quote.
Oh, my goodness, you're funny.
And so guess who it was? It was our attorney. And I haven't talked to this guy probably in months. And he thought it was hysterical. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I'm up to. And I just wanted to share that with the class because we have lost our minds. People demanding to know where I am when they call me. Come on. It's not going to happen. So, it totally put him off guard. And it took him, now this guy's used to arguing in court. It took him probably 5 seconds to recover from that. Cause he didn't know if he dialed the wrong number. He didn't know if I was kidding. He didn't know if his check bounced. He had no idea because I said it, as if I knew who he was. Yeah. Thanks for calling me back. I deposited the check for the second time. It bounced. Do you want me to tear it up, send it back, or put it with the others? Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, and I thought you were the perfect guy to share that with. So, tools.
You bet.
And any comments about how Vinny has lost his mind?
I know this segment is real short, but I will agree. I told my wife, I don't know, must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, there's very few people left around whose opinion I value. And, you're one of them for sure. If I were to be doing something and I called you and you said, I know how you'd say it. That's probably looking pretty good, but have you thought of this? That's the way you'd put it. I know it. I would be listening intently. But I told my wife the other day, I said, I'll try, but I really don't think I can care any less about what people think, anybody else. I'll try to think less, but I don't think I can care any less what most people think, because I have just come to the conclusion that we've lost our blooming minds, and I don't take advice or correction or input 90% of the time from people that haven't got a clue when the way they're even living their life.
I've got a quick comment when we come back. We might get to tools today. So, Kyle, I got an email from Lou Cassidy yesterday. He's a USA Paris instructor. He works with Dr. Shealy, and he is the engineer of the electronics that make the PEMF and, some of the other instruments that of Dr. Shealy's specifications run. So he's the guy. He's the electrical engineer and software engineer and programmer, etc. And he's a great guy, and he's been on the air with us talking, to the class teaching. Well, he sent me an email about puppies, and we share the same lineage in some of our puppies. And so he sent me an email about something that I mentioned. I'm not going to describe exactly what it was, but my response to him was, I was, he asked me if I was talking about a specific person who wants to be on the air with us. And I said, I was talking about that person, and that person is a publicity hound. And here's what I said. USA Prepares has no interest, or less than that. Now, I don't know what's less than none, but what I was trying to convey is exactly what you're saying. We have lost interest in trying to be all things to all people. We're just going to do what we think is best, period. That's it. We're going to teach. We're going to talk about our positions. We're going to talk about honesty and integrity. But in terms of, if I don't like it, flat out, I'm not going to do it. I mean, we even had a caller one day call and wanted to talk about something, and my response was, I don't want to talk about it. I've never done that before, but that's where I am today. And George in New Hampshire, welcome.
Hey, Vinny, and hello, Kyle.
Hi.
I had to track you down, Kyle, because I wanted to apologize to you. It may not have seemed to be a situation that actually existed, but I will say this. Living too long up here in New England, especially from Massachusetts originally, where the communists really seemed much more entrenched, but they were laying low, but they were striking from hiding places until they got bold enough and big enough. Anyway, I just wanted to say is that when we were discussing guns some times ago, or I should say, since we're discussing cars, right? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
since Kyle mentioned cars, right?
I'm sorry.
Right.
No, but I wanted to say, I felt a sense of urgency because, in other words, where Montana is very different than most of the rest of the country, where they're wide open, it's that frontier mentality that's much fresher in people's minds and much more recent, whereas back here in the state Eastern establishment, let's just say they didn't even want Smith & Wesson's factory in the western part of the state of Massachusetts, where it had been for a long, long time. So I just wanted to say is that I had a sense of urgency about it. People can still get a pump shotgun once in a while from the big box stores. I saw one for $152 for a Stevens, which is a good old American name. And as I said before, if it's made in China, stay the heck away from it in most cases because it's like playing the lottery and the house always wins. And it's not the American house, it's the Chinese house. And Vinny, Kizzy Bruta. That's what my mother would say sometimes when I was a child. She would just say it in reference to something, and I'll just leave it off with this. John Wayne was referred to as grande, fuerte y feo, and it meant big, strong, and ugly. So I guess not being called that, you know. There was one other thing, but I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, I'll shut up now. And I'll just hold on for a little bit longer, if you don't mind. Just listen. Listen.
Let me say, George, I value your opinion. I can tell you are honest and a sincere man who does what he says, and says what he means. And I understand where you're coming from. And it's like I told Vinny to relate to you. I take no offense whatsoever of anything that you said. And at this point where we are now, and actually when we were talking about guns before, they were already drying up, and any port in a storm, you know. So anything is better than nothing. So I get your point, and I'm not easily offended at all. I'm not.
All right, gentlemen, let me weigh in for a second. What we're talking about is George, I believe, was saying, get a shotgun, because if your knees are knocking and you're not used to it, shotgun will probably be a great choice for someone who is not particularly accustomed to using a lot of rifles, pistols, revolvers, etc. Shotgun is a, you know, when you hear the rack of a pump shotgun, it's a great way to go. And some people like the, you know, semi-automatic shotguns. So that's what we're talking about. There was just a difference of opinion, but they were both excellent. Okay? That's my point of view. Any other comments, George?
Yeah, I'll just say this, and then I'll get off. I'll say that I can understand, Kyle, and you, Vin, about people's opinion, because maybe we were just a little too conventional growing up, where, you know, we felt like what society meant matters. But when I see increasingly that nobody speaks out against a lot of the real perverse, strange, just plain evil stuff that seems to be held up in esteem nowadays, I'll just say I've seen too many people where I don't like to talk much about if I'm going through something or certain things. I just kind of keep it to myself. But sometimes people will ask, and I say to myself, it's a different community now. That's what I love about USA Prepares and the faculty and you guys, and is that it's something called just normalcy. And it's like I don't see normalcy now, and it's at a point where I watch people where they close their eyes, they drive by, they see things, whereas Kyle, Vin, myself, we would feel like we just couldn't close our eyes to it or just drive by it without offering some sort of a help. And the last thing I'll just say is I remember one time I was with my son in a car, and we're driving along on a major road, highway, and I see a child and his mother climbing up an embankment, a car obviously broken down. So I pulled over, I backed up, and I said, can we help and whatnot? So she told me that they only live like about a couple of miles away and maybe 2 exits up. So I said, if you don't mind, I can, and this was before the days where cell phones were really, commonplace. And I said, well, if you'd like, I said, why don't I bring you home and your husband can come back or make arrangements to have your car towed. So I brought him there. I dropped him off, and the husband thanked me. And I said, well, I'm sure you would have done the same thing. And he looked at me, and this was some years ago. He says, no, I wouldn't have. And I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. I said, well, all right. I just turned, and we left. But I said to myself, there's someone whose wife and son were stuck on a major thoroughfare trying to sit up on an embankment, climb an embankment. And I say to myself, if you saw a woman and child and you wouldn't even stop to help, or at least offer to call somebody, whatever it was. And it was like, that's the attitude that I saw seeping in. And and I know we only have to look at our situation in the country now, where it's like deer in the headlight. But even deer know to kind of get out of the way or hide or at least protect their own. And that's all I'll say, gentlemen. It's nice talking to you, okay? God bless.
George,
bye-bye.
George, thank you so much for calling in. How's George? Kyle Tools, where do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, what we started out with was some homesteading tools that people are looking, some things that you might have thought of, you might not have thought of, but things that I find kind of essential. And I was just going to start off with a little bit of plumbing stuff, because water leaks seem to be inevitable. As long as there's cold weather in the winter, or they create a pipe that won't ever rust or anything like that, or break or freeze or loosen up, you're going to have to deal with plumbing issues. So, copper is its own kind of little world. You need to learn how to solder if you're going to do anything with copper, and that's kind of a art. It's almost like welding, not quite as intensive, but it is something that if you don't know how to do it, you're going to have to learn how to work with plastic. They make copper to plastic adapters, but some things that I find very, very useful dealing with plumbing is you're going to need crescent wrenches, folks. And I know you're going to need, this might be basic to some, but maybe it's not to others. I have crescent wrenches from 4 inches to 16 inches long, big ones. And I have little bitty ones and everything in between, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, literally everything in between. You're going to need that. You're going to need a set of, more than likely at some point in your, if you have to work on a lot of things, you're going to need a set of vice grips. And if you don't know what that is, you can punch it in and look it up. And again, if you can find used American-made vice grips, you're going to want them. You're also going to want some, they're called monkey wrenches or adjustable type wrenches. You're gonna need them on a homestead more than you can. If you do get into where you're actually working on your own homestead and you're doing your own work, water lines, all of this kind of stuff, you're going to need these little monkey wrenches. And I have 6-inch ones all the way up to 30-inch one. I have a huge one. Now, I've never used that one on water. Most of the time, the most useful ones are about 12 inches long. It seems like most everything can be done with those 12 to 14 inch, something along those lines. They're called a monkey wrench or a adjustable jaw. Their jaws adjust. You turn a little nut in the backside of it, and the top raises up or lowers as you need it to tighten down on what you need to be able to tighten if you get something that you need to tighten. That's how you're going to do it. I'll get your comments there, Vince, and then I got more to go.
Okay, I've got a couple quick questions for clarification, Kyle.
Sure.
I believe you mentioned the term crescent wrench. Now, class, Crescent, Crescent, is a brand name, and it also is kind of like a type of wrench. So some people might say, I want to make a Xerox. What they really don't mean is they don't want to make the company Xerox. They want to make a copy, but they use the term Xerox as a synonym for copy. Now, so what I did was I looked up the term crescent wrench on the internet. Now, it's confusing, Kyle, because it shows an adjustable pair of pliers, with a worm screw that you can open and close the jaws wider or narrower, and that would be called a crescent wrench. Also, there's a kind with an offset set of grippers, like a pair of regular plain old pliers that people had in the 60s and 70s with a angled head. Those are called crescent wrenches. And also wrenches that are combination wrenches, open end on one side, like, 9/16 of an inch or in the millimeter size, and the other side would be box wrench, boxed. So what were you talking about in terms of crescent wrenches? Which one of those?
Well, I was actually talking about the one that you can screw the bottom or top. You screw the bottom usually, and it'll drop down with a little worm gear.
Got it. So those are, to me, those are adjustable. So we're talking about wrenches, and I used the term adjustable pliers, and what I really meant was adjustable wrench. And you talk about crescent wrenches. So if you go to the internet and you look up the images of these things, you're going to see, if you look up monkey wrench, you're going to see images of all kinds of wrenches that are not monkey wrenches. So, Kyle, the term that I used when I was growing up, and I guess it depends on which part of the country you're from. Monkey wrenches, I've heard that term. But I've used the term pipe wrench. Is that what you're talking about? The adjustable jaw pipe wrench? Is that what you mean by a monkey wrench?
Sure. Yeah, and actually I was trying to think of that, but it just wasn't firing. All the synapses were not firing. But yes, agreed. Yeah, it's adjustable pipe wrench that has jaws on the top and bottom, and you tighten them down. I realize we're really running out of time here. We didn't have much. We can always do it again, but the other thing that you're going to want to pick up, I am a big fan of now these are not necessarily tools, but if you're doing plumbing, you're going to need them, I guarantee you. The little stainless steel hose clamps. They make what's called, they're just a little screw that sits around a band, and they come in many different sizes. You're going to want an assortment of them. They make them down to go to like a 1/4 inch up to, 6 or 8 or 10 inches. They're huge. They can be huge. But your most common size that you're going to be using is going to be probably 3/8, 1/2 inch, 5/8, and 3/4. That's going to be, and 1 inch, possibly, yes. 1 inch. So you're going to want those hose clamps, an assortment of them. And I would say probably 10 of each sitting around somewhere. If you're thinking of long-term storage or use of these, you're going to want a whole bunch of them, especially those sizes. Your comments, Vince?
Yeah, we have here at the farm, we have probably a couple hundred of them in all of this. Yes, we have a couple hundred of those in the sizes that you recommended: 3/8, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 5/16, 3/4, 1 inch, and larger. And we use them for the hoses on automobiles, and we use them for plumbing. But I have a caution. If you go to the Chinese factory tool outlet and you buy theirs, they look like they're stainless steel, and they're not. They're not necessarily stainless steel. And they're substandard. They will rust. And if you have a stainless steel one, you can bury it in the ground. It'll be there for years and years and years. But if you buy one of these Chinese factory tool outlet ones that looks like stainless steel, it's going to rust. And the steel is so weak they break. So what we're talking about is a hose clamp. It's a band. It goes around the circumference of the hose, whether it be a plastic or rubber hose, for an automotive application. And it has a screw tightening mechanism that you either put a socket on or a flat screwdriver tip, and you tighten it. But only get the kind that are absolutely stainless steel. AutoZone sells them. Ideal, IDEAL, is a top quality brand. That is my favorite. It's been around since I was selling auto parts after high school days. back in the 1960s and 70s. So that's the best brand I've ever found. Kyle?
I agree with that completely. Ideal is the best, and all of mine are that way too. I only, Vince, it's kind of interesting. So many things we do are almost subconscious. When I say those stainless steel hose clamps and stuff like that, I don't even think in terms of buying anything other than making sure it's stainless steel. I don't even consider that. I mean, it's almost a subconscious thing, but I got to realize that you're right. I'm glad you think of those things, because there are a whole bunch of substandard garbage out there. Now, the other thing that I'll make real quick here, my son-in-law does this kind of thing, a lot of plumbing for a living, and he has a banding tool. And if you're putting plastic pipe around something or hooking them together, he has this little metal band and a little a clamper type tool that squeezes those things on and puts them on there really tight. I mean, they do work really well. They are a major pain to get off if you really ever need to. And I personally don't trust them for long-term use. But he does so much of this and it's so much faster that he uses it a lot and he has very good luck with it. He told me the other day he has not had to come back to a job yet where one of those bands failed, and he's been doing it for years. But in any case, I would like to get your opinion on that as well, Vince.
Sure. I believe what you're talking about is connecting PEX, PEX type pipe, it's flexible, semi-flexible, water line to these brass connections, whether they be, couplings or elbows or T's. And there's two styles. There is one that looks like a wedding band. I believe that's what you're talking about. It slips over the end of the pipe, and you have this tool that goes over the pipe with this like wedding band type fitting. It's a kind of a heavy copper alloy, and you crimp it down and it gets tighter. That's one way. The way that we do it is we use the stainless steel ones that uses a different pair of pliers, and you just crimp it, and the tires, the plier jaws make the connection tighter, and they're a little easier to take off. So there's two styles. Is that what you're talking about, Kyle?
Yep. I'm actually talking about the second one. He uses that one most all the time.
And that's the one to use, class. Kyle, we're going to have to do it again and again. Boy,